I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. Now, today we're reading from the book of Daniel, chapter 11, and let's focus on verses 29 through 31. At the appointed time, he will come again to the south, but this time will not be like the first. Ships of Kittim will come against him, and being intimidated, he will withdraw, and then he will rage against the holy covenant and take action. On his return, he will favor those who abandoned the holy covenant. His forces will rise up and desecrate the temple fortress. They will abolish the daily sacrifice and set up the abomination of desolation. Now, I was 14 when I got my first job. I worked for a country club, and the club pros used to videotape important European golf and tennis matches, overnight. And they were played in earlier time zones over in Europe. And then they would replay those matches throughout the day on the big TV in the men's locker room. And once during Wimbledon, the tennis tournament, I watched our tennis pro win hundreds of dollars off of club members betting on the outcomes of various matches, which the pro had already seen the end of earlier in the day. Well, that's what we call cheating. And there are theological skeptics who try to late date Daniel's prophecies. That is, they claim that Daniel's prophecies had to be written after the events that had been prophesied had unfolded. They were literally saying Daniel is lying about events that had already happened. As a matter of fact, they say Daniel didn't even write those things. They just attributed them to Daniel. Somebody else who knew the outcome said that Daniel had prophesied. Well, the reason they give for this allegation is purely the fact that Daniel's prophecies are so completely accurate, down to the slightest detail. Basically, what they're doing is accusing the Bible's compilers of cheating because they somehow knew the outcome and, like I said, wrote the prophecies and attributed them to Daniel. You see, the skeptics simply don't trust that God can speak through a guy like Daniel that far out, and that God could know exactly how future events could play out precisely. They have a lack of faith in God. You see, prophecies yet to unfold in our generation can be trusted because of prophecy fulfilled in prior generations in the Bible. And of course, that is exactly what irks the faithless skeptic. Not only were Daniel's prophecies accurate for the events close to his day and his age, they're also predicting apocalyptic events of the end times, times which we may be living in now. Daniel's prophecy about the coming of the Greek king Antiochus was also predicting the coming of the anti-Messiah, aka the Antichrist. And Daniel's prophecy is echoed in the Revelation and in Matthew's gospel and in other places in the Bible. Consider this, Matthew 24, verse 15. So when you see standing in the holy place the abomination that leads to desolation, spoken of through the prophet Daniel, let the reader understand. This is what Jesus said. He was attributing, saying that, that might have been speaking of things in the short term, but actually he's still speaking of things which have yet to come. And just as they came in the short term, so we know they will happen exactly as he said in the long term. Or what about the Revelation chapter 13, verses 3 through 6? The Apostle John wrote, "And all the world marveled and followed the beast, and so they worshiped the dragon, who gave authority to the beast. And they worshiped the beast, saying, 'Who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with him?' And he was given a mouth, speaking great things and blasphemies. And he was given authority to continue for 42 months. And then he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and those who dwell in heaven." Daniel chapter 11, verses 32 through 35. "Those who do wickedly against the covenant, he shall corrupt with flattery. But the people who know their God shall be strong and carry out great exploits. And those of the people who understand shall instruct many. And yet, for many days they shall fall by the sword and flame, by captivity and plundering. Now, when they fall, they shall be aided with a little help, but many shall join with them by intrigue. And some of those of understanding shall fall, to refine them, purify them, and make them white until the time of the end, because it is still for the appointed time. So what Daniel is saying is exactly the same thing that we saw in the book of the Revelation. Deception comes, people being deceived. Christians will suffer more and more. First we become, disregarded. Then we become a pariah. And then we become the enemy of the state. It's coming. It's happening even in our generation. But what we know is this: greater is he who is in us than he who is in the world. And the prophecy which was fulfilled to the very word, even in Daniel's day, will his same prophecies for our times yet to come, they will also be fulfilled as they were. This is not the time to turn from the Lord and try to save yourself. This is the time to stand firm in your salvation, for salvation is only from the Lord. I'm Steve Wiggins, and this is the Groundworks Ministries podcast. Now, Groundworks Ministries operates entirely through financial donations from faithful people like you. And yes, we need your monthly support. Donating is secure and it's easy at our website, groundworksministries.com. Another way to help is to tell people about Groundworks Ministries. You can share these podcasts with friends and family and on your social media. And of course, you can always direct folks to our website, groundworksministries.com.